During the 70s, there was a worldwide fascination with New Ageism. It was mostly sparked by approaching millennial tension. 2000 was looming, and people were wondering about the possibility of an impending Armageddon. You know, was Jesus coming back? Would Atlantis rise? Was mankind at the brink of a psychic awakening? Interest in the Mayan calendar sparked a deeper interest in UFOs and brought to the forefront a keener interest in Nazi occultism, Area 51, and the Mojave 3. And it was a strange renaissance where modern science clashed with old mythology. And it really seemed that, you know, both the old world and new world science were kind of colliding and, you know, making themselves better acquainted. And then there were the people who were like questioning the existence of life after death. You know, were the dead amongst us? You know, did ghosts really exist? Possession, too, was a big hot-button topic with films like The Exorcist being very culturally relevant at that time. And, you know, people were wondering if Christ were potentially going to return, then that must mean that the devil were walking among us, perhaps. And one of the biggest buzzwords amongst New Ageists was Amityville. The sensation was sparked by the 1977 publication of Jay Anson's The Amityville Horror. This is the hardbound copy. Mine's kind of beat to hell because I throw it around like that. The book detailed the true life violent haunting that drove homeowners George and Kathy Lutz from their home at 112 Ocean Avenue in Long Island, New York. And a film followed in 1979, which we just saw the trailer for. More books, television specials, and sequels followed in droves, and most of them merely just kind of expanded on the myth of Anson's original novel, which was kind of embellished to begin with. And a lot of the stuff, like some of these books, such as Amityville, the Nightmare Continues, is a complete work of fiction. However, you know, because it's based on something that's non-fictional, a lot of people, or supposedly non-fictional, a lot of people kind of took it as fact. Then you had prequel-type books by people which were about the Amityville community, about, you know, what, you know, Amityville was built on, and you still, to this day, this is one of the most recent books that's come out, The Night the DeFeos Died, which is, it's more of a primer for people who want to know more about the hoax aspect of it. But, you know, there were tons of books published. And up until his death in 2006, they would trot George Lutz out almost every year, annually, on ABC or CBS or the History Channel even, and have him go over, you know, his claims, many of which kind of were peeled away like an onion. You know, some of them were eventually dismissed as complete exaggerations or fabrications. And more recently, Platinum Dunes produced a mediocre remake of the original film, which almost bears no resemblance to the Anson novel or the original film. Some of the films that were made include the original Amityville Horror, which is the first and still the best. I think it kind of stands as an underrated classic. Then there was Amityville 2: The Possession, followed by Amityville 3D. And then there were a slew of movies that were basically the house is destroyed, and people have started auctioning off objects from the house which are haunted or cursed, like mirrors, clocks, and like one of the last ones, which was ultimately just one of the worst pieces of crap I've ever seen, Amityville Dollhouse. Which was about a dollhouse from Amityville Horror, and the dollhouse is haunted, and it's affecting the house that
I think I've seen them all.
Yeah, it's like a really bad Escher painting.
Wasn't Jaws in Amityville?
Yeah, that was actually part of the setting too. Also in Long Island. The home at Ocean Avenue actually still stands to today, and it's kind of got it endures a frustrated celebrity of its own. People come in droves to see the house, and many of it still consider it to be the holy grail of haunted houses. And this is much to the chagrin of people who, you know, who live in the neighborhood or live in the house. I'm about to show a clip in a second where you see these people. They're kind of shooting some lo-fi kind of documentary on the situation, and people are like flipping them the bird and screaming, "Get alive! You know, get out of our neighborhood!" Because they have to deal with this all the time.
Didn't they remodel the house recently?
Yes.
It's been remodeled so it doesn't look the same.
Yeah, they'll touch upon that coming up. The credibility of the Lutz family has been challenged frequently over the years by credible paranormal investigators, and still, Anson's tale has become the watermark by which all haunting experiences are measured, and it's often even referred to, kind of like the Betty and Barney Hill case, which was one of the first UFO abduction cases.
Oh, yes.
A lot of people feel that a lot of that stuff was kind of drawn from the film Invaders from Mars, because so much of what they said resembled what was in that film. And I think the Amityville Horror as a film kind of took on a similar personality, or not personality, but but it's a standard by which all hauntings are measured. People refer to it constantly.
Which is ridiculous because, I mean, like you said before, being a hoax and all. But aside from that, I mean, even watching the movie, Hollywood always embellishes things to make them more interesting, because there are movies that are true stories where they add stuff to it to make it more interesting.
Yeah. The fact that the story is widely accepted to be a hoax isn't something that's really played up in the media. There's always like, well, was it or wasn't it haunted?
It's because we like to have that mystery.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it really doesn't benefit anybody to kind of come out and go, oh, yeah, it's all crap. None of this happened, like I said, it's kind of like stepping on a ladybug, People get mad at you. And while the image of the house itself, it's changed considerably. They changed particularly those two eye-like windows, which are at the top,
You have to admit, those were pretty creepy.
Yeah, they do kind of look at you. The house itself is virtually like pop culture iconography. Like, everybody knows what that house looks like. It's kind of like Freddy's house. It's or the Psycho house. It's one of those houses that everybody knows and recognizes. But the house's grim reputation really began on the evening of November 13th in 1974, when Ronald Butch DeFeo Jr. burst into a local Amityville bar proclaiming that his father and mother had been shot. A handful of people made a pilgrimage back to the house on Ocean Avenue, where 6 members of the DeFeo clan had been shot to death in their beds with a .35 caliber lever-action Marlin rifle. So, to give you a kind of clear view of this, it wasn't like a clip-loaded gun. It wasn't a gun that held cartridges. You basically you pulled the lever up, ejected the cartridge, put the next one in, and locked it, and then shot. Reports indicated that they had all been shot around 3 o'clock in the morning of that day. DeFeo's parents had each been shot twice, while the children had been killed with single shots. DeFeo initially claimed the murders had been carried out by a hitman by the name of Louis Fellini, and while he was questioned, however, inconsistencies began to mount, and the following day he basically cracked and said that he committed the murders himself, his actions at the time of the crime. Because he did, as many people claim, he moved around the house, he talked to friends, and some people say he even, he concocted this story about the hitman, He was well aware of what he did, he tried to cover it up.
To know, I mean, if you're trying to cover something up, you're definitely aware of that.
Yeah.
Well, and didn't he give, even after he admitted doing it, didn't he give, several different varying stories of how it happened?
He's had so many different stories. One that his friend Lee Oleski helped him carry out the murders. There was another story that he had where he claimed that his mother actually helped him carry out all the murders and then just laid down for the bullet. There's a similar variation where his teenage sister, Dawn DeFeo, was accused of being a murderer.
She said that she was abused too at one point, right?
Butch was actually also abused.
Okay.
Both of them were abused as children and even into their teens. Ronnie took the brunt of the father's abuse. He had a business that was struggling, and when he'd come home, ultimately Ronnie was his punching bag. But as Ronnie got older, he became larger, more physically intimidating, and he wasn't a guy that you could really push around. And a lot of people kind of suggest that this is what set him off.
Yeah.
So DeFeo was ultimately charged with all 6 murders, and he is currently being held in the Greenhaven Correctional Facility in Beekman, New York. A lot of people have suggested that perhaps there were dark forces which spurred him to kill that night so many years ago. But those who really knew Ronnie would tell you that he was completely capable of committing murders like this.